Hello. Hi guys, it's me Finn, and I know you might be looking at the calendar right now like a bit confused, a bit like so it's the 14th of December when I'm filming this. And you might be like, it's kind of been a long time since fall. And to that I say, I'm sorry. I kind of didn't notice that November ended until it was like already like 10 days past December. And then I had to like quickly cook up this whole video. It's better late than never. And since I have a tradition of telling you about all the books that I read in each season, which is one of my favorite videos to do because I love reflecting on the literature I've read, I'm so happy you're here today. And let's go. Just a little bit late, but it's fine. It's okay. I think we can still do it. We can still make it. It's okay. As long as it's not January, it's still kind of fall anyways. As per usual, we will be starting from the worst books to the best books, to the top tier, to the mwah chef kiss books. So we will start with the ones that were kind of ass, you know? But they were not actually, like, literally no hate to any of these books. They were not actually ass. It's just like they were not for me most of the time. So let's go. Here's all the books I read this fall. The last on my list of books is It's Not How Good You Are, But It's How Good You Want to Be by Paul Arden. So I would give this book approximately 3 stars. I feel like a solid 3 stars out of 5 is pretty good. I think it's pretty good. So basically, this is a self-help book, if you couldn't tell by the name already. I read it in the last days of November since I'm kind of scared that I might not make my reading challenge, but I think I will. I have like 5 books left and I think I will do it, but I was kind of in a hurry. And this book is like this thin. Like, I'm not joking, it's like this thin, so I just had to like read it as quickly as possible. This book is about marketing and about kind of different marketing strategies and how you can sell yourself and how you can sell ideas, which is a good skill to have. I mean, genuinely, it's not a bad book. It promotes good skills that are probably they're pretty good. Like I'm not complaining. Like, I feel like if I would be working in marketing and I would not be in high school, I feel like I would actually need these skills more than I do. Like, I don't actually really need them, but it was interesting to read sometimes. I really liked the formatting of this book. The formatting was very nice. There was a lot of visuals, a lot of pictures, and it was very clear that it is made by someone who is good at marketing. Just the way he like shows his ideas through imagery, through metaphors, through like different tables and pictures and like perspectives. They were very good planned. Like, it was clearly a book that was made by someone who knows what they're saying. Like, he knows what he's doing, guys. So I feel like if you're interested in marketing or just in like the whole like process of selling ideas and buying ideas, even like in business, like, this is a good book to read. It's just probably not a good book for me. Bonjour Tristesse, I hope that's how you say it. It's by François Sagan. So it's a French novel written in 1954. I actually haven't read that much books by French authors, and this is a classic. I heard that when it came out in 1954, it was like a sensation, like a lot of people liked it. And I get why, and this book is so French. This is a very French book. Everything that happens in this book is so French. I don't know how to explain it, but the energy is just French. The energy in the house is very French. So, Bonjour Tristesse, I'm not really sure how to say that, but as far as I understand, Bonjour Tristesse means hello sadness, and that is very fitting since the book is about the exploration of emotions, about the exploration of youthful emotions. It tells the story of a French 17-year-old girl who is passing her summer vacation in Côte d'Azur with her father, and her mother died, and her father is sort of a player. Like, he keeps getting these new girlfriends, and she's just like hanging out with her father. They're like besties, and they're both just like they're like lively people who like to go events, who like to party. This little paradise that they've created is ruined when her father starts dating her late mother's close friend. This book is so teenager coded because the girlie basically decides, like the protagonist, she basically decides that I don't like them, I'm gonna separate them. So then she creates like a whole plan and builds these like schemes of just like separating them and making them not be together. And all along while she does that, she also has this dude on on their like vacation place who has a crush on her, and she like likes him, but she also doesn't really like him, and she doesn't really care about him that much, so she's kind of like careless. And that's a very big emotion felt in the book. Like a lot of the things these people do are very careless. They don't really care about other people, and I think that's one of the main points Françoise Sagan was trying to portray in the book, that they don't really, it doesn't really matter to them how other people feel and what they do. They just feel like no remorse of their actions whatsoever. So it's very much like selfish and self-centered, but in a very like youthful way. And her father in that sense also kind of feels like a child. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough. I don't really know. I really don't know how to explain my feelings about this book. To me, it's just like a 3.5 stars kind of book. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of this book, but I feel like it's an interesting book to analyze. Like, to analyze this book would be very interesting, but I would like to read some other of the Françoise Sagan books. Next, we have I, Who Has Never Known Men. I also gave this book 3.5 stars, so it's pretty much in the same spot as the last one. This is a science fiction book about 40 women who are in a bunker, and they don't remember how they got there. They don't remember their lives before being in the bunker, and they can't leave. As the premises of the book, I was so like, wow, that is crazy. This is insane. But then I started reading it. I just wasn't that interested. I really felt like the book was dragging, although the book is very short. It's a very short book. Once again, it's like 180 pages or something. Honestly, I think this is a problem that I have. I think the problem with me as a person is I love when books are interesting and engaging, and I love to feel like, oh my god, I want to know what happens next. And I also really like to explore human emotion. And I like to, like, I like to see what's happening in the character's head. What are they feeling? I like to have, like, these very, like, beautiful language, beautiful metaphors. And the protagonist of the book is this young girl who, between all these other women, she is the youngest. She has no recollection of the life before the bunker because she's never even lived outside the bunker. Really no vivid imagery and metaphors in her head. And she kind of has to learn humanity throughout the book, which as a concept is so interesting. But it's the fact that she doesn't have this like humanity sort of. She doesn't really feel human emotions the way she has to for a very long time throughout the book because she doesn't really know them. She has to learn how to feel emotions, which incredible concept. But since she doesn't feel any emotions, she feels like a very cold and distant character, which makes it very hard to like kind of be invested in the book. This book also doesn't really have climax of any kind. This book is just like going like, it's going at like a constant rate. Have you seen those like physics graphs? This is like the book. It's just going like this the whole time, like no acceleration, no slowing down, no car crashes. Like that's just how it feels. Now we're like approximately, 8-10 minutes into this video. And I was just hoping that all the TikTok girlies who love to read TikTok books, like they saw the first 3 books that were like very literary fiction and they got scared, so they left. So I hope that they did that. And if you are a TikTok girly who likes to read TikTok books and you did not leave, I think you should go take a bathroom break, maybe, in this part of the video, or you should just brace yourself. Because I was kind of scared to talk about this book because I know a lot of people love this book. So this is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second part for, what the fuck is that book called? Guys, I'm so good at this. I'm literally so good. Like, literally, give me I'm gonna Google what it's called. Oh, Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing. Okay. Fourth Wing is in the house. So Iron Flame is the second part for Fourth Wing, which if you don't know is one of the most famous romantasy books of this year. So basically, yeah, I don't really like this book. This book is not last on the list, mostly because Rebecca Yarros knows how to keep a reader interested. She knows how to keep a reader engaged. But the problem is she keeps the reader engaged and interested not by like any certain like plot developments, but just by basically continuously having the same thing happen in part 2 that happened in part 1. I'm not joking. The structure of the second part is the same way as the first part. Like everything that happens in part 2 is literally what happened in the first part. It feels the same. the character feels the same. It feels like people are treating the main character literally identically to how they were treating her in the first part. And it's like, where is the character development? So the plot of this book basically takes place in this world where dragons, the main girlie is forced to learn how to be a dragon rider, although she doesn't want to be, but her family's like pressuring her. There were like a few good plot twists, and it's also enemies to lovers, which is why all the TikTok girlies are literally obsessed with it. Like, hello? Because like, honestly, the thing is, this book isn't even fantasy. Like, the only thing fantasy about this book is the presence of dragons. Everything else is just romance. It's just a romance book with like a few dramatic fights and a few dragons, but it just felt like a copy paste of the first book. It felt like there really is no character development besides like, I don't know, like 3 characters actually changed some of their like opinions, but like that's it. It's clear that this book was written on a very short period of time, and I feel like if Rebecca Yarros would have actually taken a longer period of time to write this book, it would have been better. But since the first book was released at the start of the year and the second was released like at the end of the year, like there was literally just like 12 or 11 months in between the 2 books, which is an insane amount to write a book in. Like, that amount of time is so minuscule. Like, what the fuck? And just so you understand, these books both are like 400 pages long. So this is like a lot of work. This is not 2 short books. This is 2 extremely long books written on a very short amount of time. So it's not very shocking that they're not really good. But it also makes sense that she didn't want to, like, you know, waste the hype. Like, people were so hyped about the first part. She probably felt pressured to release the second part as soon as possible, just so she doesn't lose the hype and people are still, like, extremely interested in the second part when it comes out and they haven't forgotten about it, since we live at a time when people literally have the memory of a fish and, like, in, like, 20 seconds, they forget the last trend and they have a new one. So it makes sense, but it's just very sad. Okay. Now we're getting into some books I liked more. We have Kim Ji-young, born 1982. This book to me was like 4 stars, almost 4 stars, something like that. It explores the life of a Korean woman called Kim Ji-young. In this book, Kim Ji-young is not one woman. She's more of just like, she's rather every woman ever. And this book explores all the issues and all the obstacles women, especially in Korea, have to face just to live and just to like succeed. And throughout the whole book, we see Kim Ji-young have to basically relinquish her opportunities and her health and her success to just for men around her and to meet these societal like ideas. And although she has an education as good as anyone else, she just watches her male counterparts take the job every single time. And then when the societal pressure is so big and she decides to have kids with her husband, she's forced to give up on her career, give away her job, and spend all of her time at home taking care of the kid, which is an extremely challenging task. And I also really like how it shows how hard it is to take care of kids. It's not easy. And just because so many women in the world are raising children doesn't make the task easy. And that is something that's so annoying to me when people are like, kids are joy. Yes, they are. Kids are joy. But kids are also extremely, extremely complicated. They're intricate human beings. And it's hard to take care of them. And if you don't have a moral support system, and if you don't have the resources or the people around you to help you take care of the kids, it's extremely challenging. And that's something I really enjoyed about this book, just seeing how she's struggling with raising kids. I think this is an important book to read to understand what is the difference between male and female treatment, and how sometimes, although you would be like, oh yeah, in the big picture women have rights, but when you look at the little details and of what is expected of women in society, you can really see that there is misogyny. It is still real and it still exists. And it's also very annoying to hear people go, well, women have rights in Europe. There are other countries where they don't have rights. You should be happy. In Europe, they're not throwing rocks at women like they are in other countries. And it's like, the statement itself is so flawed. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, you know, people, like, the society wants women to be grateful for getting the bare minimum. Like, what the fuck? Women only got the right to vote, like, 100 years ago. In some countries, even less than that. And it just fascinates me so much when people are asking women to, like, accept the bare minimum. What the fuck? Like, do you not see the issue with the fact that I've never heard of people be like, well, yeah, but men in other countries, they throw rocks at them, so you should be grateful that they're not throwing rocks at you. No one would tell a man that. Literally, no one would tell that to a man. And this is just like, this is something like marginalized people just have to deal with throughout their whole life. And that is so annoying to me because they say the same thing to gay people. They tell gay people that like, well, in other countries you would be in prison, so you should be happy you're not in prison right now. What? What? Okay. Okay, grateful. Okay, literally hashtag blessed, hashtag grateful, yes. Next book continues on the theme of rageful women who are done with men. And this is My Dark Vanessa. This was a pretty famous book a few years ago, and I finally got around to reading it. This book is about a girl who has a relationship with her teacher. She's a teenager and she's a relationship with her teacher. And the whole book basically follows the consequences of this one relationship and how it is basically shaped her whole future and her whole life. It's a very fascinating book to read, but it's very bleak. It's a very, very bleak, dark book. It's not happy. I mean, some people say that it's like dark academia, and I guess I see what you mean. I see what you mean, guys, but it's a pretty sad book. And it's a very dark book, but I feel like it's such an important story to read. Just to see how things that happen to people in their lives, they have meaning. They have meaning and purpose, and if something literally remotely traumatic happens to you, it's probably gonna influence your subconscious for the rest of your life. And if you don't deal with it, and if you continue ignoring it, it's gonna haunt you. And that's literally what Vanessa experiences in this book. And it's very hopeless. Then we have Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This book I read for school. This was a book I read in school. It's a graphic novel, and I really enjoyed it, actually. This is one of the few graphic novels I've ever read. I've literally only read like 3 graphic novels. I've read Heartstopper, and I've read this. Like, that's it. So yes, I found it very interesting to change up what I'm reading a little bit, you know. The graphic novel depicts the author's coming of age in Iran during the Islamic Revolution, which is such an extremely interesting time period. Islamic Revolution has turned into something I'm really, really obsessed with. So, like, guys, if you have any, like, interesting recommendations about the Islamic Revolution, like, any, like, interesting books, something, just, like, drop the name, like, I want to know. I'm really interested. The book is basically just from the author's perspective on her family, and there's a lot of women's rights in this book. There's a lot of oppression. It touches upon their freedom of expression and the importance of the freedom of expression. It's about mandatory veiling and hijab. Also very much about like growing up and just seeing people around you and how your perspective changes. It's also about the war between Iraq and Iran. So You Want to Talk About Race is the next book I read. This is like a 4.5 for getting up like into the good rankings. We're getting up to into the good books right now. I think this is a book everyone should read and a book everyone can read. It's a very concise and simple guide to race and racism. It's very easy to follow, very easy to understand. The chapters are very short. The ideas are very like, they're very easily explained. Like, there's a lot of definitions and a lot of examples. I feel like for someone, if you've never read a book about race and if you've never really read like a non-fiction book in your life before, I feel like this is really good. I feel like this is a perfect book for you since it just basically explains everything. The book is not very long, and I think it's a book everyone should read. Like, that's just my opinion. I wouldn't say this is like the best book. The ideas in this book are not revolutionary. But that's also what makes it accessible, you know? Like, this is not a book that you're going to read and going to be like, I'm going to change the world. But what you are going to do after you read this book is really reflect on how you've been thinking about race and racism and how you can change that and how you can be a better person. So this book is really not going to like, or at least for me, it didn't like change my whole mind, my life. But it's just a good book that like answers a lot of questions people have about race, and just puts things into perspective, you know, puts all your ideas, biases into little neat boxes and explains them. So yeah, it's good. Such a fun age. This book is truly very fun. This book is just like a little bundle of a lot of vibrant characters together, and I love different, like, I love characters that are like fun, relatable, like very like fully fleshed out characters that don't feel one-dimensional. I love that. I think that's one of the most important aspects of a good book. And the plot of this book is a bit intricate, and I don't want to really give the whole thing away, but I'm gonna try to explain it anyways to you guys. The story begins with a black babysitter babysitting a white child, and they are in a grocery store when they are stopped by the guard, and she's asked to prove that this is the child that she's babysitting. She's asked, what is she doing here with the child? And that whole situation basically sets off this very complicated story of how racism is viewed in the 21st century, and how the main character is just surrounded by all these different characters who like care about her, and they all want best for her, but she doesn't really know what she wants for herself yet. And it's so interesting. It's all about relationships, all about the dynamics between the characters. And I read it very quickly. It's very like fast paced. It has multiple like perspectives. Basically follows two characters, and amazing. It's a great book. The fourth best book I read this fall is Maurice. This book was scandalous at the time of its release because it depicts a happy gay relationship at the time, which when it was written was between 1913 and like 1914. It was unheard of that gay people, although they were sometimes used in books, they were mostly villains, or they were like some side characters who always had a punishment for their queerness. This book did not have that. This book had a happy ending, and it had a character like exploring his feelings with queerness and with being queer. And the book couldn't be published until the author's death in the 1970s, but that's also what makes it so extremely special. And the plot is set between like after Edwardian England and like the start of World War One in England, and it's just the main character dealing with his queerness. And I think this book was absolutely great. It's all about love and liberty, but also like self-hatred. So it's extremely relatable to all the queer people, even nowadays. And the best thing about this book, literally, this is the selling point. Not the selling point, but like, this is the thing that like, when I read this, I felt it was so heartfelt. It was so beautiful. You know how at the start of the book, people dedicate a book to someone, like to someone they love or to some person? This book was dedicated for a better world. And that is so powerful. It's so powerful that someone in the start of the 20th century was like, this book can't be released right now. This book can't be published. No one is going to allow me to publish this. No one's going to read this at this time. But in a better world, what I'm writing about in this book is going to be okay and is going to be like accepted. And that was like number 3, entering the top 3. How do you show 3? Like this or that? That was a 4 I just showed. You know what, guys? I think I should stick to books and not to numbers, as we know. Book number 3 is Girl, Woman, Other, a book I've been trying to read and trying to find anywhere for a very long time. Finally did find it in my favorite bookstore ever, and that is the bookshop in the Gatwick Airport. I have so many books from there. It's not even funny. Like, I'm actually having a collection from, like, I just have so many books from that one bookshop, actually. Girl, Woman, Other is one of the most prominent books reflecting what it's like to be a black woman in England, exploring the families and histories of the main characters. And there's a lot of like these very intricate ties and how a lot of characters are strangely connected. The book is very like contemporary. It follows 12 principal characters in different places and different time periods. Usually it would be like a daughter, then like a grandmother, then like a niece. And it's all just about the black experience in England and what it's like to be black and British in modern England and like 20th century England. And once again, as we know, my favorite trait about a book, all the characters feel so real, so vibrant. There's so much emotions connected in this book, and it was wonderful. Next, we have a YA book. Just realized that this is the only YA book in this whole list of books, I'm pretty sure. Other books are not really YA. This is Only This Beautiful Moment. I think I already mentioned how I really love the Islamic Revolution. That is present in this book as well, obviously. So yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite young adult books I've read in a long time. It has multiple queer characters, and it focuses on 3 generations of men I'm not going to say their names. I'm just going to say like the son, the father, and the grandfather, basically. So the son lives in 2019 and he has grown up in America, but he travels back to Iran to see his family, basically. Then there's the father who grew up in Iran but left to go to America. And then there's the grandfather who grew up in America as a Hollywood, like in Hollywood, as a Hollywood like child star. So there's so many interesting plot lines in this book and like this whole family. And it explores the attitude of people and all of these different time periods to queer people. And it also makes a really important point of like just saying that yes, in Hollywood in fucking 1939 there were queer people. And I love that. And I think it's a conversation we need to have. I think it's a conversation we need to have, actually. So yes, it explores Iran and Iranian culture and how people see Iran and how the character feels connected to home. And I really love when like characters like, you know, discuss their love for their homeland, their motherland. I love that since I'm such a big fan of my own country that I'm from, and it's so important to like have different stories from different backgrounds and to make our literature more diverse, to have more stories. So I love that. So yeah, I read this in like 4 or 3 days. I love this book. It's a great book, honestly, amazing. And now we have my favorite book of this fall, I guess. Yay! And this would be Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. Probably the smartest book I've ever read in my entire life. I took so many notes in this book. I underlined so many things. I can't even explain it to you. Honestly, I don't think I can fully comprehend this book because I don't have enough brain cells for that. But what is the plot, you will ask? Well, let me tell you. It's also a bit complicated, but it's amazing. So let's go. Naomi Klein had literally the most science fiction experience of her entire life, which is that she has a sort of doppelganger on the internet. I'm going to call the author of the book the real Naomi, and then the other one, the other Naomi. The real Naomi found out that there's this other Naomi who has a very similar occupation. They're both activists, they're both writers, they've both been around for a very long time, they're both kind of political figures, except the difference is that the other Naomi is very much far right. And a lot of her statements that she makes online and on the internet and on like television shows are often mixed up with what the real Naomi thinks and feels, which results in a lot of people just thinking that the real Naomi is like a far right fascist when she is in fact completely the opposite of that. In this book, literally is about every single thing ever. This book is about climate change. This book is about the social media. This book is about the pandemic. And this book is about COVID. And this book is about capitalism, a lot of capitalism. This book is about fascism. This book is about everything. I'm not joking. There's like Palestine, Israel in this book. Literally, name it, it's gonna be in this book. It's gonna be in this book. And Naomi Klein absolutely fascinates me because how can she just like know these things? Like, actually, how do you know so much? How can you write so much? How can you make so many connections and do so much research and how so much like analysis? I just like don't understand how. I'm actually so lost. I thought this book was crazy. I thought this was incredible. I feel like I learned so much. I feel like this book just made me smarter. It also made me stupider a little bit because while I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, how do I like not know this? How have I not thought about that yet? And it's like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. But so yes, I really like this book. This book is definitely not for everyone because it's not the easiest books to read. I love this book. I think it's amazing. And this is it. Thank you so much for being here with me today and going through all of these books and all of my feelings. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. Have a great Christmas, because it's basically Christmas already when this is going to come out. I swear to God. Bye!